Hello, welcome to AA Beyond Belief, the podcast. I'm your host, John S. In today's episode, we'll speak with Carmen X from my home group, Agnostics Kansas City. Carmen shares her story as a transgender woman and a freethinker in Alcoholics Anonymous who found her home in secular AA. We'll talk about that and much, much more. This was a fun conversation. I really enjoyed it, and I hope you will too. Well, hello. Today we're recording from my kitchen table because I have a very special guest. It's Carmen X from my home group, Agnostics Kansas City. How you doing, Carmen?
Hi, John, and thank you for the privilege of being in this lovely home. And thank you for everything that you've done in terms of pushing the secular AA message.
Maybe we want to talk a little bit about both of our experiences with secular AA. But before we get into that, let's start with the beginning and get to know you a little bit. You want to talk a little bit about your story, give us your background, your basic AA story.
Oh, of course. I'm not unique. I'm your run-of-the-mill alcoholic, if you find any propriety in that description. And I was born like everyone else, but in terms of my local history, I was born in an area of Kansas City that's traditionally described as the Hispanic part, the barrio, if you will. I was raised in good Catholic tradition, elementary, middle school, high school, and the first part of my collegiate experience was under the Jesuits. The reason I bring that up is that I have a very significant background in terms of religion and the role that it played in the rest of my story. I am also transgendered. I'm a trans woman, and that is a recent metamorphosis, if you will, in the last 5 years. So I'm a trans Hispanic woman alcoholic. So the rest of my story I don't think is really germane. I think what is germane is the fact that my background in religion led me into a very guilty phase, or at least while I was drinking and thoroughly entrenched in my disease, there was always an element of guilt. And finally, after decades of drinking and the threat of losing my family, or my children specifically, I was with tail between legs, forced, capital F, into an AA hall. And I'll say it right now, I have nothing but respect for traditional AA. I have been sober 18 years, and the first part of that, until I came across secular AA, quite frankly, my life was saved in terms of sobriety. Traditional AA played its role. It gave me something to latch onto. The concept of higher power, something greater than I, certainly bode well for what I felt was helplessness, my inability to think, make decisions on my own, without some sort of guidance, in this case, an indescribable, incomprehensible, higher power, if you will. Now, during my period of sobriety, as it turned out, I lost my family, traditional family. I still have the love and respect of my daughters, but things have changed, not quite like I thought they would. If I had only quit drinking, I would save my family, I would save my home, right. I would save all of my property and my reputation, and so on and so forth. But a lot of things have transpired since my being sober. One day, I had always felt a discomfort in traditional AA. Again, all due respect. Sure. But there is a sign that we see in AA halls many times, and it's think, think, think. Right. And I always looked at that sign and said, now, wait a minute. I've heard people tell me your best thinking got you here. sit down, shut up, and listen, and so on and so forth. And again, that was very frustrating to me, but I felt, well, I want sobriety more than anything, so I'm going to do what I need to do. As time went on, and I was granted the responsibility of addressing the consequences of the life that I had led, gone through the divorce, and the loss of property, and so on and so forth, I began to think, now, wait a minute, it seems to me that part of the gift that we receive in sobriety is the ability to use our intellect in tandem with our body. And so, quite frankly, I just quit going to AA. Right? That's a very, very dangerous thing to do. I would not. I would not tell anyone to do what I did, but just out of frustration. Sure. And fortunately, capital F, fortunately, I remained sober. And quite frankly, I was content. However, browsing through the library at a Barnes & Noble on the plaza here, I came across, back in the back, in the darkest places of that store, I saw a book that caught my eye, and the title of it was AA, Cult or Cure. And that was the beginning of my awareness of yet another way. Within the principles, the principles that are substantial enough to ring my bell. For instance, cleaning house and making amends for the things that you've done in your past, reviewing your day, all of most of the things I still hold on to. But so I ran home and looked. Thank goodness for the internet. I typed in secular AA. And lo and behold, I get this big, long Google page of possibilities. And so I'll stop there, because you and I have known one another for a little bit now within the confines of secular AA. And that's pretty much my story.
So how long were you going to meetings before you stopped going to meetings?
12 years.
Okay. And during that time, did you identify as an agnostic or an atheist, or did you just not care, or what was your feeling about the spiritual aspect of the program?
I was, quite honestly, I was presenting a facade.
I did that.
I held hands at the end of the meetings. I mouthed the words of the Lord's Prayer. And during those foxhole times when I was having trouble, I found myself on my knees asking for help, just in case, kind of like Voltaire did at the very last.
I did the same thing on an airplane during a lot of turbulence. I was real specific with my prayers. It was Jesus.
Yes, indeed, just in case. And then a PS, a postscript to Buddha, and so on and so forth. Islam even, but. At any rate, and I think that behavior is very human, especially those of us that were entrenched and quite frankly brainwashed the first part of our lives. I had guilt instilled in me by age 7. So, and if you want to talk guilt, we could do it for an hour. But at any rate,
And I kind of missed the think part. Was that because the group didn't want to think?
Well, I don't know. It's as though you're allowed to think, but what comes out of your mouth after that period of time of self-examination and rational thinking, what comes out of your mouth had better be in lockstep with the traditional banter that goes on at the beginning, in the middle, and at the end. There were many times I would listen to a story and I would want to stand up, walk over to the person that was talking and wring their neck and say, wake up, and do what you need to do to be a responsible human being. It's just not going to come out of the clouds.
No, I think I had the same experience. I mean, I don't know if I believed or not, but didn't believe or whatever, but I certainly went through the motions and I did all the praying and everything like that. And when I was talking in meetings, I think people liked what I had to say because I was talking, the way that everybody else was talking. But when I got to the point where I realized that for me, I'm really an atheist, I just couldn't do it anymore. But I did get myself pretty comfortable with AA, and I found myself going to the meetings and talking a little bit differently about the program, and it wasn't well received. And that's what got us to start these groups. So were you kind of feeling uncomfortable, like you couldn't be yourself in those meetings?
Well, John, again, I'm going to say one last time, I'm talking this morning, with the utmost respect for traditional AA, but facts and events are what they are. Mm-hmm. And, as I got more secular in my thinking, eyes began to roll and right. Heads began to turn. Right. And then that coupled with my transition over time, I was eventually actually in 3 different groups, traditional groups. I was asked, or at least it was suggested, that perhaps I belonged somewhere else, that I was, quote, becoming a distraction. And quite frankly, I understand that behavior. It's very tribal, and that it's required in most groups to be a member of any given tribe. And so as much as it hurt me, and as many times as I pointed up to the wall next to the think, to the second tradition, the only requirement, right, much to my chagrin and dismay, the door was there. I mean, I was sober. I was enjoying all of the benefits of sobriety. No longer, and so today, when I go to a meeting, I don't really go primarily for an alcohol problem. I go because I'm a human being with problems and issues that every human being has. Sure. So yeah, I was asked to leave.
Wow, because of your beliefs?
Because of my belief and my transition. But I think probably it was more my belief. I mean, I've been in LGBT groups who still are traditional, and I wonder if a secular presentation, how well it would go there. I mean, the level of tolerance, if you will, in any given group, it's always identifiable by the second or third meeting,
what's really odd about our LGBT group here in Kansas City?
What's that?
Is it's very traditional.
Yes. I find that interesting, and please, all my friends, go there.
They're not. It's a great group. And I
yes, it is.
I can go there and say whatever I want, and they're okay with me saying it.
Yeah. Well,
some of them even agree with me.
Well, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
They need to come to our meetings, and
they have a few times, but not that often.
Yeah. But how ridiculous can you get in terms of the specialization? I mean,
yeah, I know. We are tribal.
Yeah, we are. Do I look for Hispanic groups? Or Hispanic transgendered women groups, Hispanic transgendered secular groups? I mean, there comes a time where you have got to start being comfortable with not only who you are, you're an alcoholic, sorry, I am, and where you are living in terms of the group that you live within. I think the natural inclination for anyone, I always like to say, when I enter a room, because I'm human, I want all of the tails to wag. Right. I want people to be happy with me when I enter a room, and they're always confident that I will say what they want to say or want to hear. Yeah. And woe betide me if I do not.
Well, I agree. It has always concerned me that AA is like the rest of society, where we're all in our silos. We only talk and we're only interacting with people who see the world like we do. And it does concern me. But there still seems to be a need. I mean, we aren't welcome. I mean, I hate to say this, I'm like you. I do respect traditional AA. And I don't even know if a lot of the people that go to these meetings know what's going on. It's not like the whole group gets together and decides to treat us that way, but there's usually like a few individuals. I haven't been overtly asked to leave, but I've been stared down and I've been cross-talked and all that kind of stuff. But Yeah, that's discrimination. What you experience.
Of course,
and that's why we have to have these groups for now, anyway.
Well, I hope that what was it that Wilson? We realize we know only a little.
Yeah,
and I think that right there is the jewel that defines our mission.
Yeah.
As we grow and expand, and not only that, in tandem with the medical community, that's zeroing in on the addiction and where it is on the brain and so on and so forth. Who wants to be alcoholic? I've heard that also. I'm so glad I'm an alcoholic. Otherwise I wouldn't, silly. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Well, no, I'm not. No. I mean, who wants to be diabetic? No. Who, so on and so forth. It's a physical disease. And, I do subscribe to the psychic change piece to it. But guess what? I latch on to the think part of it. And I'm proud of the people that I know now within AA. Yeah. They are responsible human beings and do not rely on something above themselves. Right. I subscribe to the idea that I am not of the type of personality that depends on something that's indescribable, because then I stand the chance of rationalizing the so-called intuitive thinking that I'm supposed to get in spiritual terms. And the next thing I go out and kill a bunch of people. Well, God told me so, to do it. I mean, that's an extreme example, but what I'm saying is sometimes behavior is not necessarily established on a good moral foundation.
Right.
And believe me, it was tough because the Catholic thing, oh my goodness. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, with me, when I was going through the big book to try to understand this thing, and I was reading the big book, and I noticed all the religious language, and I noticed that it was just tagged on. It was just added on there, and it wasn't really necessary. And it would be you'd have this paragraph that would talk about something that we actually do as part of our recovery. And then at the end of the paragraph, they tag on a sentence about how wonderful God is for making it all happen and possible and how it draws us closer to God and everything. And I realized that if they just left that part off and just left the action part in there, that there wouldn't be, take the belief stuff to church, whatever. It's not a big deal.
Indeed.
So this kind of brings me to a conversation that you and I were having once about traditional AA. We were talking about traditional AA. And I remember I said, I'm tired. I wish that we wouldn't even use the word traditional AA, because it's more like we're the traditional AA. We're the ones that are, all inclusive, that are focusing on a simple program of action and all this kind of stuff, I'm thinking. And maybe what might happen, at least I'm hoping, if AA is going to survive, I think it's going to have to happen. I think that they're going to have to modernize, and I think we're going to have to get off of this God stuff so much. And I'm not saying that people can't believe in God, but not insist that, not treat it like a religion. When I was in Santa Monica at our very first international convention, we had Phyllis H. she was at the time the manager of the General Service Office of Alcoholics Anonymous, and she was at the convention, and she spoke there. And she was at a workshop in Santa Monica, and someone asked her what she thought about all the court rulings that described Alcoholics Anonymous as a religion. And she said, well, we just need to stop acting like a religion.
Interesting.
And I think she's right. And I think that over time, we've started acting that way. And what I'm noticing with our group is, I think that probably most of us that go there probably are either agnostic or atheist or freethinker, probably not very many believers there. But that might very well change over time, It might just get to be where that whole religion thing is just totally off the table and more groups start adopting a secular format. We're kind of hoping that can happen.
Well, I see it also as a semantics issue. You're absolutely right about, I believe that traditional AA is in fact a religion, almost cultish.
Yeah.
If you Google the word cult, you'll find that bullet by bullet by bullet, it provides the definition quite nicely. At the end of the book that I made reference to in the beginning of our cast, Cult or AA, Cult or Cure.
Right.
At the end, there is a rather interesting piece by Dr. Erickson, I believe his name is, who defines and goes over the type of personality that requires to be told what to do.
Right.
And again, that if you template that over the text of the book, I think you'll find that you're right. It has to change. And God could and would if he were sought. I think not. I think sobriety comes when you quit drinking, period. Right. End of sentence. Right. The idea of character defect, I think, is a semantic for sin.
Yes, it is.
And I no longer subscribe to that. That is not the tonic that I need anymore in my life. And unlike Voltaire, I certainly hope I won't be reaching out at the last minute. Just in case. No, I subscribe to the rational and intellectual instincts that men and women have been born with. That's the difference between us and the animals.
Right.
So, I have, religious people in my universe, so to speak. And it's difficult sometimes, tolerating the rationale. But again, sobriety at least gives you the gift of understanding where they're coming from. Yeah. And as long as their beliefs do not infringe on my freedom as a human being, then it's okay. Now, we're also talking at that same conversation you were alluding to, the fact that AA, perhaps in the 70s, does not look like AA is today.
Right.
And I think a lot of the times is just because we come into a room, it means that we bring along our preconceived ideas, political, social, and otherwise. Yeah. I find there is a lot more intolerance going on, and that may be reflected in the political environment that we're in here in a country at large.
Yeah.
So, just because somebody sobers up, they still hold on to preconceived notions or ideas that are harmful to people in the aggregate. So,
well, I'm surprised you didn't just give up on AA altogether after reading that book. I mean, because you come to the conclusion that it is a cult. I mean, I'm okay. It is a cult. We are cultish. I mean, so why did you not leave? I mean,
well, you know why? And I'm going to. Hopefully, I won't embarrass you. People like you. Yeah. And others like you that are putting out alternatives out on the internet and Googling that, hey, come on down. Yeah. We have a meeting that might be for you. That's why I didn't give up entirely on AA.
That's pretty cool.
And I'm still willing to say that I am a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. Although I'm not anonymous, I don't care who knows who or what I am.
I'm really kind of loosening up on that too. I mean, I don't use my last name on the podcast or anything, but anyone's going to figure out. Anyone who knows me that happens on this, they'll figure out who I am. I guess, and that's not such a big deal. But with the internet, I'm on Facebook all the time. I'm on the internet all the time. I just don't know. I mean, I just don't know if it really matters. I mean, I understand that I'm not going to be out there like the spokesperson for AA or anything like that. And I don't want to be making money off of it or anything, but I don't care really if people know that I'm in AA or that I'm an alcoholic or that what I'm doing. And I'm almost kind of thinking there's a few things I've been thinking about lately, but the anonymity thing, it's like, I mean, I can see the need for having respect for one's privacy when they come to a meeting, that someone should feel safe there, that what they're going to share in that meeting is going to remain in that meeting, and that we don't run around saying, hey, Joe Blow came to our AA meeting, or anything like that. So we should always respect someone's privacy. But at the same time, if we're afraid of letting people know that we had an addiction to alcohol, all that does is further stigmatize the addiction.
I couldn't agree more. Talking about anonymity, it's certainly in politics. George Bush, too, toted it along his political resume, the fact that he dabbled in cocaine and other things and recovered, and that was looked upon as an attribute. Let's not even talk about 45. It appears that other things are attributes. But no, looking at it honestly, people knew I had a problem with alcohol when I was drinking. Mm-hmm. The other thing is I also appreciate people that have professional licenses, airline pilots, even bus drivers or what have you. I respect the idea that maybe you should stay anonymous.
Right.
For instance, I was in a profession that required annual licensing, and impairment was always something you had to answer, and you were subject to losing your license, and rightly so. If your impairment led to the endangerment of my clients. So that's all fine and good. But if I'm in the process of trying to do something about my problem and someone has ill will pointed at me because I'm trying to do something about it, I think that whole thing will take care of itself. That the greater society will look more favorably on me that I'm trying to do something about it as opposed to hiding it.
Right.
I mean, look at my skin. Isn't it nice? I'm no longer red. And my face is no longer blushed and swollen. And my eyes, oh my goodness, those days.
Alcohol addiction is so widespread. And addiction itself is just such a widespread problem. I mean, almost every family in America is touched by it. I mean, you can't go anywhere probably in any block and not find someone who doesn't have someone with an alcohol problem in their family. And I was actually doing a little bit of research the other day for something I'm writing, and I went to the Centers of Disease Control, and I was trying to look at the death rate for alcoholism or whatever. And something I found there really kind of surprised me, that the number 12 reason for deaths, the 12th highest reason for deaths is liver failure or cirrhosis. Cirrhosis of the liver.
Isn't that amazing?
Number 12.
Isn't that amazing?
That blew me away, because that's that's just about exclusively almost alcohol related, right? I mean, cirrhosis of the liver. I mean, so that's number 12 on the death rate in the United States. So that's a huge problem, I think. That's amazing to me.
There is a piece, now that you bring that up, what is the term I'm looking for? The male dominance in traditional AA. The use of the word he in reference to God. A special chapter to the wives, so on and so forth, as these pieces of our lives are segregated out. And one of the other things that I'm just absolutely happy about is that the women and the men, there's a commonality, and I feel equality among all of us, regardless of our race, our socioeconomic status, our sex, our sexual orientation. We're all in this together, and we have choices among us. So
let's talk a little bit about, I guess, you started coming to our group. I think when you were coming to our group, I was hunkering down doing some stuff at work, and I wasn't going to a lot of meetings at the time. But you started coming to our group, and did you kind of develop a philosophy for the program, or what is your basic philosophy now for working through your recovery?
My basic philosophy...
do you believe in the steps and all that kind of stuff still?
I believe in myself.
Okay.
Primarily.
Yeah.
I believe in also living a moral life, and by that I mean I'm not talking about breaking one of the 10 Commandments so much as being good to others and treating others as though they were me. I do try to work on remaining outward focused as opposed to inward. And I am not exclusive, but there's no one else like me that's living my life. So I tried, my basic philosophy is I open my eyes. I just turned 69. There is an urgency to my living now. In the morning,
I feel that.
Oh my goodness. There's also a realization that there is an end to this.
Right.
And so let's get on with it, Carmen.
There's some things I want to get done.
Exactly. The bucket list, I think, no, I don't want to do that. In the morning, I realize I'm given another day.
Yeah.
By that, I mean, I'm given, what do I mean by that? Well, I mean that the SA node, my heart continues to throw out an electrical impulse, and the ventricles react to it, and there's blood that goes out into my veins. And eventually, the genetic imprint is going to mean that Carmen is going to age, and eventually things start failing, and then there's an end, and I decompose, and that's it. So the urgency, there are brighter colors. I'm looking out your breakfast room window at this moment, and that tree right now looks so vibrant and so green and so alive. And I don't need drugs or alcohol to enhance that. So my philosophy is my own, not like yours.
Right.
But guess what? We are both sitting here sober.
Right.
We're not nursing a hangover.
Right.
And we are free to have our own ideas about what good living is all about. I don't wake up in jail anymore. I've never have. Don't get me wrong. But I don't wake up in strange places. I don't wake up in strange people or strange things. Right. And these are all benefits to sober, rational living.
Yeah. My whole ideas are still evolving because I spent like 25 years in a very traditional environment in AA and a real big book focused type of a thing. And even not that long ago, I still kind of was interpreting that language, and trying to. I'm much more loose with it now. I mean, I don't even bother with the old vocabulary. It's all about whatever my experience was and communicating it in my own language and taking everything that I've learned to communicate that in meetings with people.
Yes.
And those steps, I mean, that was that experience at that time.
Yes, indeed.
That's all that is.
Yes, indeed.
And it's great that they had that experience and I can learn from that experience, but I don't have to replicate it.
Exactly.
And I don't have to use that language, like the character defects thing, To me, that's a loosey-goosey. I can work on improving myself. I can go see a therapist. I can go do whatever I need to do to improve myself. I can take a class, whatever I want to do. I can work on self-improvement is how I would see that kind of stuff. And I don't really worry too much about that terminology of higher power. Yeah, people help me. People help me. It doesn't mean that those people are necessarily my higher power.
Exactly.
I mean, why do I have to use that language? So I'm really, really evolving now to where maybe a year ago someone would talk to me about higher power and stuff. And I'd say, oh, my higher power is AA, or my higher power are the people in the rooms. And now I'm like, higher power, who cares?
Yeah, indeed. Indeed. And the idea of atheism requires quite a bit of thinking.
Yeah, it does.
Because,
I like that.
Exactly.
You have to think about what this means to you.
Exactly. And in order to get to that point, you have to be, or at least I had to be in a process of unlearning. Not only learning, but unlearning. Because many of the reactions that I had to life and its situations were reflexive. If I prayed about something and it didn't happen, then the next thing was God's will. His power to whatever the rest of that is. Right. So, it takes quite a commitment to be a human being.
It does.
And human being, if we look at the last word, there are a lot of humans in this world. There are very few human beings, and I consider you one of them, John, and many of the other people that I know within the group. The word being is an adjective. It is a word that is full of action. And so if you put human with the word being, I am human that is being. And that means also one other thing. I, moth to a flame, I run to people that do not have the answers. Yes. I run to people that say, I'm having an issue with this, and it doesn't appear that A plus B equals C. Yep. I posted something on my Facebook not too long ago, a quote from Alice in Wonderland, in which Alice is asking the caterpillar, she doesn't know which direction to take. And the caterpillar, I'm paraphrasing here, essentially says, when you don't know where you're going, any road will do. And my response to it is, I don't trust people anymore that know the road.
Exactly.
Because they are no longer required to think.
Yep.
And unlike the Mad Hatter, they no longer have that hat to think. Yep. And so I like people that are not confused so much as are seekers.
Yeah. And when you talk about like cult, and I don't know if this was in the book or not, but the one area of AA that is a little bit cultish, and in some groups more than others, is the sponsorship thing. Because when you're brand new to AA, usually you're having all kinds of horrible problems in your life. You're scared, you're hopeless, and you just want someone to tell you what to do.
Yes.
And there's a lot of people that will step in and do that.
Yes.
And really, the best thing you should do is just run like hell when someone's telling you what you need to do. And what's funny is the people that you really should be attracted to are the ones that say, I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's go have some coffee.
Let's go have some coffee. That's it. That's it. And get you to bed without a drink.
Yeah. But people like that saying, okay, this is what I want you to do. I want you to read the big book every single day for 30 days and call me every day. And I want you to go do blah, 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 blah. And people think, okay, I'm doing something. And because I'm doing something that someone else is telling me to do, I'm going to be okay. Mm-hmm. And then the poor person, if they're not okay, it's somehow their fault.
Yeah, I think I couldn't agree more. The very idea of sponsorship in and of itself is cultish.
It is, and it worries me more than that. Worries me about AA is the culture, the misuse of sponsorship.
Yes, it's power. You have a power over another human being.
It started with these weird Clancy groups, really. I'll say it. Clancy groups.
Oh, John.
Because they have a really weird sponsorship thing. And Ben and I have talked about this too, where you have grand sponsors and it's a real authoritative system. They have groups like that in Kansas City, in the Kansas City area anyway. But it started with them. But it's kind of seeping into other areas of AA too, where the sponsor is becoming more of a, authoritative, hard-ass type of a person. And I don't think that's the way it was meant to be at all. Like Bill and Bob sponsored each other. Mm-hmm. They were, I guess Bill considered Ebby his sponsor and Ebby wasn't even sober. And then Bob considered Bill his sponsor. But Bill wasn't telling Bob what to do.
Right. I would rather much go, John, be my sponsor. No. Yeah. John, be my friend.
Right. Same here. I think friends are better than sponsors.
Exactly.
And, something that our group has started doing lately, which I kind of cringe at because I understand that everybody means well, but now we do this thing before the meeting starts. Says, anybody willing to be a temporary sponsor, raise your hand.
Yeah.
And for a while, I really wasn't raising my hand because I'm like, I don't even believe in sponsorship. One day I said, I'll do it, but I'm really not a good sponsor.
Yeah.
But I do want to help people, so I do raise my hand.
Gee, there is a little bit of titillation at the temptation of having a slave. Yeah. In order to sober up, you must come to my house and do my housework, and then my laundry.
Yeah. There's some weird stuff like that.
Isn't it grand we can sit here and laugh with one another, John?
Oh, it is.
It's good to be happy, but it's also good to cry every now and then, and to be pissed off, and to be jealous, and to be intolerant. Yeah. All of these things.
Yeah. We don't have to stuff. We don't have to hide with alcohol or drugs or any of that. We are very fortunate, especially when you consider what's going on with the opioid epidemic and still people dying all around us from alcoholism, that you and I are sober today. It's something to be thankful for. It truly is. I mean, what we're seeing going on in our society right now, it's just horrendous. It's horrendous.
It is.
So, yeah. And, I'll never forget, it's been a long time since I drank. It'll be 29 years next week. And
congratulations.
Thank you. But I have not forgotten at all what it was like. I have not forgotten. I have not forgotten. You were talking about shame. The shame that I had with my drinking was just unbelievable. I was a blackout drinker. I was always afraid that people might have seen me. I was trying to hide my problems from everybody. I was disgusted with myself for constantly getting drunk when I didn't want to. It was horrible. But that's how I lived. And I don't live like that anymore. And it's been so long, I don't even stop to think about it so often. It's just become a natural course of life now that I don't live that way. But if you live that way, and I stopped when I was still fairly young, so I didn't have to go through many, many years of it like some people did. But goddamn, just 5 or 6 years of that is enough for me.
Yeah. There's a lot of work to drinking.
Yeah.
Or at least drinking and being functional.
Yeah.
And I know for a fact, sitting in this beautiful home of yours, that you are in fact professional And, to the listeners out there, this is a gorgeous home. Anyway, I worked diligently and I was dedicated to my addiction. I calculated every night, based on my height and weight, the amount of alcohol I needed to consume in order to be passed out, in order to answer the bell, which, oh my God, 4 a.m, every morning for 3 decades, And then I had a row of soldiers, pharmacological soldiers that included Tylenol, Visine, Inderol for the shakes. I mean, because I was pharmacologically astute, I knew some of the things and then what do they call them? 45 puts them in his mouth when he grabs pussy. Those. Yeah, or Tic Tacs or something. Yeah. I'll never be able to buy another. But anyway, so back to my point. I worked very hard at it. But again, a handful of years after I quit drinking, I'm going down the halls of a hospital, and someone who had not seen me for a number of years passed right on by me, didn't even recognize me. And I turned around and I said, Steve. Well, that's not his name, but Steve. And he turns around and he says, is that you? Have you quit drinking? So it was obvious, in spite of my best efforts, everyone knew. Yeah. However, the bad news was I was doing good work, and that can be an additional layer of scourge. Yeah. Me? I have a problem? No. Look at my house, look at my car, look at my status in the community, and look at what I do for a living, and blah blah blah. But when I'm home and the drapes are drawn, I'm an animal.
Yeah. That makes it more difficult. I was fortunate that I never really got off the ground, really. I couldn't, I don't know if I ever could have gotten off the ground. I mean, I don't think I ever could have accomplished anything drinking. It was, because just right out of the gate, I was in my 20s when I had my last drink. And
oh my gosh.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I was just before my 26th birthday when I got sober. So, I was like, I realized when I was about 19 that I had a problem, and I was thinking about going to AA at that time, but I just thought I was too young to be an alcoholic. And then from there on,
there you go thinking again, John. Shame on you.
Yeah. So I could never get it together. And I remember actually when and I've been thinking about this a lot, because I think when I'm around my anniversary time, I get a little bit reflective. But I think about what it was like for me at that time, being in my 20s and getting sober. And I remember being a little resentful sometimes because people would tell me how lucky I was. Oh, you're such a lucky young man. You're so lucky to be taking care of this problem at the age that you are. And you didn't have to lose everything that I've lost. And I remember at the time I was thinking, but I could never get what you had. I don't know if I'm ever even going to own a house. I don't know if I'm ever going to have a kid or anything like that stuff. I never had a chance to get anything. And who are you to tell me how lucky I am? I feel like crap, so I was really kind of resentful about all that stuff, and it kind of made it difficult. But now in hindsight, as I sit here, I'll be 55 soon, and I look back and I say, I was lucky. I wouldn't want to be going through this right now. It'd be more difficult. So I am lucky because I was able to kind of get things together. I was able to go back to school and, move on with my life and have a career and stuff. So I guess I am lucky, but I didn't feel lucky at the time. And I don't think that we should be telling people that. If I see some kid, I say kid, but I see some young person in their 20s or whatever come to meetings. If I ever hear somebody say, "Oh, you're so lucky," I've
heard that.
I know, I've heard it. I hate it.
Yeah.
Oh, please don't tell people that.
Yeah, or go out and come back when you've had enough.
Yeah, that's wrong.
That's bullshit.
That is so wrong.
Yes, it's so wrong.
I think about that. But now that we have a lot of young people now in our group, but they see me as just some old guy.
Isn't that frustrating?
I know, but I can transport myself back. I was in your shoes at one time.
Yeah. How frustrating, but yet I love watching the young blossom within our universe of self determination.
Yeah.
But again, thank you and Julie and a few others within our group that have gone out, spread the message. I hate to use that term, but make others aware who have quit traditional AA that there is yet another possibility, another road that you might consider taking, and that would be.
We're all pioneers still.
Exactly.
And you're one with us, and we're all doing it now. And because we're still at the very beginning of this, I really do believe that we're going to see more secular groups spring up around in our area. I would like to definitely see some on the Kansas side. I would like to see some out in the suburbs. Lee Summit, Blue Springs, north of the river, even south of us. We should start getting some.
Well, I travel, and I'm not self-flagellating for sharing this. I travel 30 miles each way to get to these meetings, and where I live in the northern part of the city, across the river, right now the culture just would not tolerate. Oh my God, no! I mean, there's without a doubt a secular approach to AA would not be tolerated. You would be asked to leave.
Weird how different it gets when you just get outside the city limits a little bit.
It's the only thing that keeps me rational and reasonable. The fact that I can get into my car and go back to my tribe across the river. That's another podcast in terms of the political environment. But there are alcoholics where I live. And there are AA groups where I live, but none like the one I belong to now.
Well, I want to thank you very much for coming over here and sharing this with me. I'm going to do more of these with people from our group.
Oh,
it's kind of nice to have somebody sitting here at the kitchen table and speaking with somebody face to face. And it's really been great having you in the group. And I just really admire your intelligence and your dedication to everything that you're doing. And it's just been wonderful. It's been great.
Well, thank you, John. I appreciate your kind words. And again, congratulations to you on the things that you're doing and doing it very well. Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, Carmen.
Well, that's it for another episode of AA Beyond Belief, the podcast. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back soon enough with another episode for your listening pleasure. Until then, don't drink, go to meetings, and help others.